The void shields over Hive City, Ethelgard, collapsed at dawn. There was no explosion. The hum of the generators simply stopped. Millions of people looked up. They saw the sky turn the color of bruised flesh. The Tyranid bioships hung in low orbit. They looked like massive floating organs. Spores rained down like black snow. Colonel Vance Harlan watched the screens in his command bunker. He did not blink. He had not slept in 3 days. His uniform was stained with sweat and engine oil. He held a Recaf cup that had been empty for hours. The strategic map showed only red icons. The red icons meant enemy contacts. They surrounded the spire. The green icons meant Imperial Guard units. The green icons were blinking out one by one. Harlan knew the math. He had 12,000 men left. The ammunition count was at 4%. The food supplies were gone. The water recyclers had failed yesterday. He looked at the tech priest standing by the cogitator banks. The priest was Magos Varn. Varn wore red robes that were torn and dirty. The priest was plugging data slates into his own mechanical arm. The machine spirit of the bunker was dying. The lights flickered. Harlan asked if the distress signal was still transmitting. Magos Varn made a grinding sound. The priest said the shadow in the warp was too strong. No messages could leave the system. Harlan nodded. He expected this. The Tyranids blocked all psychic screams. They were alone. He touched the las pistol on his belt. It had one power pack left. He saved it for himself. Outside the heavy blast doors, the sound of screaming began. It was not human screaming. It was the chittering screech of 1,000,000 alien beasts. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Harlan put on his helmet. He told his staff to prepare for the end. They stood up. They were terrified. They were starving. But they were soldiers of the Imperium. They fixed bayonets. The 812th Cadian Regiment held the main plaza. They were good soldiers, but they were tired. Private Jace checked his laser gun. The power cell was hot. He had fired it too many times. The barrel was warped. He looked at his boots. The leather was rotting from the acidic spores. His stomach hurt. He had not eaten real food in months. They ate grey paste made from recycled dead. It tasted like chemicals. He looked at the wall of chitin and muscle rushing toward them. The Tyranids were endless. Gaunts leaped over the barricades. A heavy bolter team to his left exploded in a shower of gore. A large beast had spit acid at them. Jace raised his gun. He fired. The laser burned a hole in a small alien. 2 more took its place. He knew he was going to die today. The Emperor protects, he whispered, but the Emperor was very far away. Then the sensor officer in the bunker shouted. A new alarm wailed. It was not the proximity alarm. It was the warp energy alarm. Harlan looked at the main screen. A tear in reality opened above the main plaza. It was not the sick purple of chaos. It was a blinding, pure blue. It swirled like water. The pressure in the room dropped. Ears popped. Magos Varn fell to his knees. He screamed that the logic engines were confused. The numbers did not make sense. The energy reading was off the charts. It was not magic. It was raw power. The Tyranid Swarm paused. The Hive Mind sensed something new, something wrong. The aliens stopped their charge. They looked up. From the blue light, a shape fell. It was small. It was round. It landed on the cracked pavement of the plaza. It bounced once. It looked soft. It looked like a blue puddle that stood up. Private J saw it land. He stopped firing. He thought it was a grenade, but it did not explode. It sat there. It looked harmless. It was the size of a child's ball. A Tyranid warrior charged the blue blob. The warrior was 3 meters tall. It had scything talons that could cut tank armor. It struck the blue thing. The blue thing did not die. It did not bleed. It expanded. It moved faster than the eye could follow. It wrapped around the Tyranid. There was a wet crunch. The Tyranid was gone. The blue blob sat there. It seemed to look around. Jace rubbed his eyes. The blob began to change shape. It grew taller. It turned silver and blue. It took the shape of a human, but it was too perfect. It held a sword that glowed with black lightning. Harlan watched on the screen. He felt a cold shiver go down his spine. This was not a savior. The Imperium did not have saviors like this. This was a new monster. He gripped his pistol tighter. The war for Ethelgard had just changed. The Tyranids shrieked. They did not like this new meat. They charged the single figure. The figure did not move. It simply raised a hand. Black fire erupted. The plaza vanished in smoke. When the smoke cleared, the Tyranids were gone. Not dead. Gone. Harlan watched the energy reading spike again. He realized the most dangerous thing on the planet was no longer the alien fleet. It was the small blue thing in the plaza. The blue entity stood in the center of the ruined plaza. The smoke from the black fire drifted away. The ground where the Tyranids had stood was clean. It was smooth. There was no ash. There were no bodies. It was as if the space had been erased from the world. Private Jace lowered his laser gun. His hands shook. The barrel of his weapon clattered against his belt buckle. He looked at the blue figure. It looked like a young human. It had long silver blue hair. It wore clothes that looked like fine silk. It did not look like armor. The figure looked clean. Everything else on Ethelgard was covered in soot, oil, or blood. This figure was spotless. It looked out of place. It looked like a picture from a holy book that had been dropped into a furnace. The figure turned its head. It had golden eyes. Jace felt the eyes scan him. It did not feel like a weapon sight. It felt like a scanner. He felt a pressure in his head. It was not painful. It was strange. It felt like someone was reading the pages of his mind. Sergeant Krell stepped forward. Krell was a veteran. He had a scar running down his face. He held a chainsword that had run out of fuel. Krell shouted at the figure. He asked if it was a demon. He asked if it was a servant of the dark powers. Krell's voice cracked. His throat was dry from thirst. The figure tilted its head. It did not speak with a mouth. A voice appeared in the air. It was clear. It sounded like a calm bells. The figure said it was not a demon. It said its name was Rimuru Tempest. In the command bunker, Colonel Harlan watched the feed. The audio was crisp. The static that usually filled the Vox channels was gone. The presence of the blue being seemed to clear the airwaves. Harlan looked at Magos Varn. The tech priest was trembling. His mecha dendrites were twitching. Varn whispered that the energy readings were impossible. He said the being was made of magicules. Harlan did not know that word. He asked if it was warpcraft. Varn said no, it was something else. It was ordered energy. It was stable. Chaos is never stable. Chaos is wild. This energy was like a math equation given life. Harlan looked back at the screen. The figure, Rimuru, was walking toward the soldiers. Rimuru looked at the humans. He saw their condition. He had an advisor in his head. He called it Raphael. Raphael told him the humans were dying. They were not just fighting. They were starving. Their bodies were breaking down. They had diseases from the corpse starch they ate. They had radiation poisoning from the damaged city reactors. Rimuru felt pity. He had built a nation of monsters. He took care of his people. Seeing these humans live like this made him angry. He did not show his anger. He smiled. It was a gentle smile. It was the most terrifying thing Sergeant Krell had ever seen. In the 41st millennium, Nothing smiles like that unless it wants to eat your soul. Rimuru reached into a pocket. The pocket was dimensional storage. He pulled out a barrel. It was a wooden barrel. He set it on the ground. He tapped the top. The lid popped off. The smell of fresh water filled the air. It was a sweet smell. Real water. Not recycled sweat. Not filtered urine. Pure water. Jay smelled it. His mouth watered. His body reacted before his brain did. He took a step forward. Krell grabbed his shoulder. Krell told him it was a trap. Krell said the water was poison. It was a test of faith. Rimuru took a wooden cup from the air. He dipped it in the barrel. He drank. He swallowed. He sighed with satisfaction. He offered the cup to Jace. Jace looked at Krell. Krell looked at the blue being. The being did not attack. The being waited. High above the planet, the Hive Mind noticed the gap. The Hive Mind is not a single person. It is a billion wills screaming in unison. It saw the hole in its swarm. 1,000 warrior organisms had vanished. The Hive Mind did not feel fear. It felt curiosity. It felt hunger. It directed a new signal. On the surface, the Tyranids changed tactics. They stopped charging blindly. The gaunts pulled back. Larger shapes moved in the shadows of the ruined buildings. The ground rumbled deep below. A Trigon was digging. It was a massive worm beast. It was tunneling directly under the plaza. Back in the plaza, Jace took the cup. His hands were black with grime. The cup was clean. He lifted it to his cracked lips. He drank. The water was cold. It tasted like rain. It tasted like life. He did not die. He did not mutate. He felt energy rush through him. His headache vanished. His stomach stopped cramping. He began to weep. He dropped the cup. He fell to his knees. He praised the Emperor. He thought the Emperor had sent this water. Rimuru did not correct him. Rimuru knew that faith was important. He looked at the other soldiers. He waved his hand. More barrels appeared. There was food too. Bread, meat, fruit. The soldiers stared. They had never seen fruit. They only knew grey paste. Colonel Harlan saw his men falter. They were dropping their weapons to eat. This was dangerous. A soldier who eats is a soldier who is distracted. But Harlan could not blame them. He was hungry too. He saw Magos Varn watching the screen. Varn was recording everything. Varn said the matter creation was perfect. It was not an illusion. The bread was real molecular carbon and glucose. The water was H2O. To create matter from nothing was a godlike power, or a supreme heresy. Varn wanted to study the blue being. He wanted to dissect it. Harlan told him to be quiet. Harlan had a tactical mind. If this being could feed an army, it was more valuable than a titan. Suddenly, the ground erupted. The Trigon burst through the concrete. It was 50 feet of chitin and electric fury. It roared. The sound shattered windows in the surrounding towers. Soldiers fell over. The barrels of water tipped. The Trigon lunged at Rimuru. It was fast. It moved like a lightning strike. Its scything talons were charged with bioelectricity. They could cut through a Lehman Russ battle tank. Jay screamed. He thought the savior was dead. He thought the food would disappear. Rimuru did not dodge. He did not draw his sword. He held up one hand. He caught the talon. The massive claw stopped dead in his small hand. The ground cracked under Rimuru's feet, but he did not move. The Trigon pushed. Its muscles bulged. It could lift tons of rock. It could not move Rimuru. Rimuru looked bored. He looked at the beast. He asked Raphael for a scan. Raphael analyzed the creature. Insectoid. Hive Mind connection. Purely biological. No soul. Just hunger. Rimuru nodded. He squeezed his hand. The Trigon's talon shattered. The beast shrieked. It was a sound of confusion. It had never been stopped. Rimuru jumped. He floated in the air. He was eye level with the monster. He extended his right hand. He spoke a single word. Gluttony. A black mist poured from his palm. It looked like a storm cloud. It took the shape of a jaw. The mist enveloped the trigon. The beast tried to dig away. It was too late. The mist swallowed it. In 3 seconds, the massive worm was gone. The mist returned to Rimuru's hand. He landed softly. He patted his stomach. He said the monster tasted like lobster. The soldiers were silent. The eating was forgotten. They were terrified again. To kill a monster is one thing. To eat a monster is another. It was unnatural. Krell picked up his chainsword. He did not know what to do. He looked at the bunker camera. He hoped the colonel had a plan. The colonel did not have a plan. Harlan was stunned. He had seen Astartes fight. Space Marines were strong. But this was different. This was casual. This was effortless. Rimuru turned to the camera. He knew he was being watched. He waved. He spoke to the camera. He asked to speak to the leader. He said he wanted to make a deal. Harlan swallowed hard. He pressed the transmit button. His voice played over the plaza loudspeakers. He identified himself. He asked what the creature wanted. Rimuru smiled again. He said he wanted to help. He said he was a traveler. He saw the infestation. He could clean it up. But he wanted land. He wanted a place to stay. He wanted citizenship. Harlan almost laughed. Citizenship. For a Xanos. It was a death sentence for Harlan to agree. The Inquisition would burn them all. But if he said no, they died now. If he said yes, they might live a few more days. The Tyranids were regrouping. The scanners showed millions of bioforms converging on the plaza. They wanted to kill the blue anomaly. Harlan made his choice. He was a dead man anyway. He told Rimuru he accepted the help. He said they could discuss terms later. Rimuru nodded. He looked at the sky. The spores were thick. He decided to clear the air. He activated his aura. It was a Haki-like pressure, but controlled. A golden light expanded from his body. It pushed the black spores away. The sky above the plaza cleared. For the first time in months, a ray of sunlight hit the ground. The soldiers gasped. They shielded their eyes. The light was bright. The Hive Mind was angry now. It deployed its heavy hitters. On the horizon, Bio-Titans appeared. Hierophants. They stood like skyscrapers on spider legs. They carried bio-cannons that fired acid blobs the size of cars. They were miles away, but they began to fire. The shells arced through the air. They were aimed at the plaza. Rimuru saw them. He calculated the trajectory. He could block them, but he wanted to show off. He wanted these humans to trust him. He needed to be their shield. He flew up. He flew high above the city. He hovered in the path of the acid shells. He spread his arms. He used a skill called Beelzebub again, but as a shield. The giant barrier of eating energy appeared. The acid shells hit the barrier. They vanished. They were consumed. Rimuru converted the energy into magicals. He felt stronger. He looked down at the Bio-Titans. They were far away, too far to punch. He pointed his finger. He cast Megiddo. It was a spell he used to become a demon lord. He created thousands of water droplets in the sky. He used light spirits to focus sunlight through the drops. They became lasers, thin, silent beams of concentrated heat. He aimed them at the joints of the Bio-Titans. The beams fired. There was no sound, just thousands of flashes of light. In the distance, the legs of the Hierophant severed. The massive beast toppled. They fell with earth-shaking crashes. Their own weight crushed them. The Tyranid army was confused. Their siege weapons were dead. Their synapse leaders were being sniped by water drops from the sky. The swarm began to lose cohesion. They reverted to feral animals. They attacked each other. They ran in circles. Rimuru landed back in the plaza. He looked at Jace. Jace was eating a piece of bread. He was crying and eating. Rimuru patted him on the helmet. The metal of the helmet was dirty, but Rimuru did not mind. He told Jace to eat slowly. He told him everything would be okay. Jace believed him. For the first time, Jace believed he might live to see tomorrow. Colonel Harlan sat back in his chair. The tactical map was turning green. The red dots were disappearing. The impossible had happened. The invasion was stalled. But Harlan felt a heavy weight in his chest. He knew the Imperium. He knew how it worked. A victory like this was suspicious. A savior like this was a target. The Tyranids were simple monsters. They just wanted to eat. This blue being was complex. It wanted to talk. That made it dangerous. Magos Van was already praying to the machine god. He was reciting binary canticles of confusion. He did not know how to categorize Rimuru. Was it a biological machine? Was it a warp entity? Van decided he needed a sample. He looked at his surgical tools. He hid them in his robes. He would wait. He would get close. He needed to know the secret of the blue slime. Rimuru sensed the greed. He sensed the fear. He knew this would not be easy. Establishing Tempest in his old world was hard. Establishing a foothold here would be harder. The people here were broken. Their souls were scarred by war. They expected betrayal. He would have to teach them how to hope. But first, he had to finish the bugs. He asked Raphael for a strategy. Raphael suggested a wide-range purification. Rimuru agreed. He began to release his slime body. He expanded. He did not turn into a giant human. He turned into a massive pool of blue liquid. He flowed into the streets. He flowed into the sewers. He moved faster than water. He hunted the gaunts in the tunnels. He dissolved them. He absorbed their biomass. He analyzed their DNA. He found the Tyranid genetic code fascinating. It was adaptable. He copied it. He learned how to make chitin armor. He learned how to breathe toxic air. He added these skills to his list. The soldiers watched the blue flood move through the city. It did not touch them. It went around their boots. It climbed walls. It cleaned the corruption. Where the blue slime passed, the rust was gone. The metal shone. The air smelled fresh. Rimuru was not just killing the enemy. He was cleaning the house. He was renovating the Hive city. Night fell. The screaming of the aliens had stopped. The city was quiet. The only sound was the hum of the ventilation fans, which were working again. Rimuru had fixed them while he was in the ducts. He reformed in the plaza. He looked human again. He sat on a crate. He waited for the colonel. Harlan arrived in a chimera transport. The treads clanked on the clean pavement. The ramp dropped. Harlan walked out. He had his hand on his pistol. He was flanked by stormtroopers. They aimed their hotshot laser guns at Rimuru. Rimuru did not stand up. He waved. He held out a plate of food. It was a steak. It was steaming hot. "Colonel Harlan," Rimuru said, "you look hungry. Let's eat. Then we talk about my rent." Harlan looked at the steak. He looked at the alien boy. He looked at his men. They were watching him. If he shot the boy, his men might revolt. They had eaten the bread. They had drank the water. They were already compromised. Harlan took his hand off his pistol. He walked forward. He took the plate. He took a bite. It was the best thing he had ever tasted. It tasted like treason. "We need to talk about the signal," Harlan said. "The distress beacon. It's working again." Rimuru nodded. "I fixed it. I thought you wanted to call your friends." Harlan went pale. He had hoped the signal was broken. If the signal was working, the Imperium would come. The Space Marines would come. The Inquisition would come. And they would find a Xenos sitting on a crate, feeding steak to an Imperial colonel. They were all doomed. You shouldn't have done that, Harlan whispered. Why? Rimuru asked. Friends are good, right? Not my friends, Harlan said. They don't like new things. And you are a very new thing. Rimuru tilted his head. Raphael warned him of high probability of conflict. Rimuru sighed. He just wanted to build a town. Why was it always so complicated? He took a bite of his own steak. Well, Rimuru said, let them come. I'll make enough food for them too. Harlan looked at the stars. He imagined the black ships moving through the warp. He imagined the orbital bombardment cannons loading. He realized that surviving the Tyranids was the easy part. Surviving the rescue would be the real nightmare. The first day was over. The hive city of Aethelgard was safe from the aliens, but it was now in the hands of a slime. And in the dark darkness of the far future, that was a very strange place to be. The soldiers slept. For the first time in years, they had full bellies. They dreamed of blue water. They did not know that their souls were now balancing on the edge of a knife. Margos Varn stayed awake. He was in the bunker. He was typing a message. He was sending a data packet. He was bypassing Harlan's authority. He was sending the combat footage to Mars, to the Mechanicus. He typed a code, Omega Thet Null. It was the code for Archaeotech discovery. He did not call Rimuru a Xenos. He called him a living STC, a standard template construct, a machine that knows everything. Varn believed Rimuru was a lost technology from the dark age of technology. He wanted to claim the prize. He sent the message. The astropathic choir screamed as the message left the system. The die was cast. The eyes of the galaxy would soon turn to Aethelgard. The week following the arrival of Rimuru Tempest was the strangest week in the 10,000-year history of Hive Aethelgard. For the soldiers of the 812 Cadian, it was a time of confusion and guilt. They were no longer starving. Rimuru had established a production line in the lower manufactorums. He did not use the massive, enslaved assembly lines of the Imperium. He used his own skills and a few summoned wolves to hunt local vermin for biomass, which he then converted into processed meat. It was efficient. It was clean. It was heresy. Private J sat on a crate of ammunition that had been refilled by the blue slime. He looked at his laser gun. The barrel was new. Rimuru had swallowed the weapon, analyzed the damaged metal, and spit it back out in factory-new condition. Jace felt dirty holding it. He knew the machine spirit of the gun must be confused, as Xenos had touched it. But the gun fired true. It did not jam. In the Imperium, utility often fights with dogma. For now, utility was winning. But Jace had nightmares. He dreamed of the Inquisitors. He dreamed they burned him for eating the alien steak. Colonel Harlan had moved his command center. The bunker was too small. He now operated out of the Spire's main cathedral. It was a massive Gothic structure. Stained glass windows depicted saints slaughtering aliens. Now a real alien sat on the steps of the altar, reading a data slate. Rimuru was learning Low Gothic. He learned fast. Raphael, the voice in his head, translated the grammar instantly. Rimuru found the language harsh and full of words for war. He found very few words for peace. Rimuru approached Harlan. The colonel was looking at a map of the lower hive. There were still pockets of Tyranids, but they were dormant. They were hiding. Rimuru pointed at the map. He said he wanted to build a water filtration plant in Sector 7. He said the pipes were lead, and they were poisoning the children. Harlan rubbed his temples. He was tired. He was not tired from war. He was tired from fear. He told Rimuru that Sector 7 was a holy site for the Mechanicus. They would not allow modifications. Rimuru laughed, a soft, bubbling sound. He said he had already asked Magos Varn. Varn had agreed. Harlan looked at Magos Varn. The tech priest was standing in the corner. He was staring at Rimuru with his optical sensors zoomed in. Varn had not agreed because he wanted clean water. Varn had agreed because he wanted to see how Rimuru built things. Varn was obsessed. He had recorded Rimuru transmuting stone into steel. It broke the laws of thermodynamics. It broke the laws of the Omnissiah. But Varn did not care. He was collecting data. He was like a spider waiting for a fly. He believed that if he studied Rimuru long enough, he could learn to become a god of the forge. This was the first crack in the alliance. Greed. The catastrophe began on the 8th day. The sensors in the spire screamed. It was not a ground alarm. It was an orbit alarm. A ship had translated from the warp. It was not the Tyranid fleet. The Tyranid fleet had pulled back to the edge of the system to regroup. This was an Imperial signal. It was the frantic, heavy code of the Imperial Navy. Harlan looked at the identifier. It was the frigate Righteous Fury. It was a patrol ship that had been in a nearby subsector. It had heard the distress call before the Tyranid shadow fell. Harlan felt his blood turn to ice. Rescue had arrived, but it was the wrong kind of rescue. The Righteous Fury was known in this sector. It was commanded by Captain Vorus. Vorus was a hard man. He often worked with the Ordo Hereticus. He did not tolerate failure, and he certainly would not tolerate a Xenos mayor running an Imperial hive city. Harlan looked at Rimuru. Rimuru was eating a bun. He looked happy. He thought guests were coming. Harlan told Rimuru to hide. He told him to go into the sewers. He told him to dissolve and wait. Rimuru shook his head. He said hiding would make him look guilty. He said he was a sovereign leader. He would meet this Captain Vorus. He would negotiate a treaty. Raphael calculated the odds of a successful diplomatic outcome. The probability was less than 1%. Raphael did not tell Rimuru this directly. Raphael knew Rimuru needed to see the truth of this universe himself. Rimuru changed his outfit. He absorbed the silk clothes and created a black military uniform. It looked like a commissar's coat, but without the symbols. He thought it looked professional. Harlan thought it looked like a mockery. The Righteous Fury did not hail them. It did not ask for status. It launched drop pods. This was standard procedure for a compromised world. They assumed the command structure was dead or corrupted. The pods slammed into the cathedral square. Dust billowed. The doors blew off. Stormtroopers marched out. They wore black carapace armor. They carried hell guns connected to power packs on their backs. They formed a firing line. Following them came a man in a long leather coat. He wore a peaked cap. He had a bionic eye that glowed red. It was Lord Commissar Holt. He was not the ship captain. He was the political officer. This was worse. Harlan walked out to meet them. He kept his hands visible. He ordered his men to stand down. The 812th Cadian stood on the edges of the square. They looked healthy. Their armor was clean. This immediately made Commissar Holt suspicious. A regiment under siege by Tyranids for 6 months should not look clean. They should be starving. They should be dying. Holt scanned the line. He saw the new repairs on the cathedral. He saw the water barrels. He saw the lack of corpses. He did not see a miracle. He saw evidence of collaboration. Holt stopped 10 meters from Harlan. He did not salute. He asked for the status of the Xenos threat. Harlan swallowed. He said the threat was contained. He said they had received aid. Holt narrowed his eyes. He asked what kind of aid. Before Harlan could lie, Rimuru stepped forward. Rimuru walked out of the cathedral doors. He looked small compared to the stormtroopers, but he walked with absolute confidence. He smiled. He extended a hand. He introduced himself as Rimuru Tempest, Chancellor of the Jura Tempest Federation and protector of this city. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a tank. The stormtroopers did not move, but their fingers tightened on their triggers. Holt looked at the blue-haired boy. He looked at the outstretched hand. He looked at Harlan. He did not scream. He did not rage. He spoke with a cold, flat voice. He declared Harlan a heretic. He declared the 812th Regiment to be traitors extremis. He declared the creature to be a Xenos filth. He drew his bolt pistol. Rimuru was surprised. In his world, people usually talked first. Even the dwarves listened before they fought. He tried to explain. He said he had saved them. He said he fed them. This was the wrong thing to say. To the Imperium, suffering is a test of faith. To accept food from an alien is to sell your soul. Holt fired. The bolt shell was a mass reactive explosive. It was aimed at Harlan's head. Holt wanted to execute the traitor first. Rimuru moved. He did not teleport. He just moved very fast. He caught the bolt shell. It exploded in his hand. The blast was contained by his aura. Smoke rose from his fingers. His hand was undamaged. Rimuru frowned. He was not smiling anymore. He asked why the man attacked his own ally. Holt did not answer. He ordered the stormtroopers to open fire. He ordered them to kill everyone, not just the alien. The soldiers too. The witnesses. The square erupted in laser fire. The stormtroopers were elite. Their aim was perfect. The first volley hit the Cadian guardsmen, who were standing by the barrels. Men who had just survived 6 months of hell died instantly, shot by their own rescuers. Private Jace saw Sergeant Krell take a shot to the chest. Krell fell, his eyes wide with betrayal. Jace screamed. He raised his laser gun, but he could not fire at the commissar. It went against everything he had been brainwashed to believe. He froze. Rimuru was angry. He had seen war. He had killed armies. But this was stupid. This was waste. He released his aura. A wave of purple energy slammed into the stormtroopers. It was the menacing aura of a demon lord. It did not kill them. It crushed them into the ground. They fell flat, pinned by gravity. Their armor creaked. Commissar Holt was strong of will. He remained standing, though his knees buckled. He shouted litanies of hatred. He called Rimuru a warp spawn. This was the moment the Tyranids had been waiting for. The Hive Mind is a strategist. It had watched the human ship arrive. It had sensed the conflict. It knew the blue being was distracted. It knew the humans were fighting each other. It played its card. The ground beneath the cathedral did not just break, it dissolved. Acidic gas pumped up from the sewers. The dormant Tyranids attacked, but these were not the same Tyranids as before. Raphael alerted Rimuru. Notice, adaptation detected. Enemy units have evolved resistance to physical blunt force and magical manipulation. The creatures that poured out of the ground were black and slick. They were zoanthropes, but modified. They had throbbing brains exposed on their heads, shielding by bone ridges. They did not fire warp blasts. They acted as vacuums. They sucked in the ambient energy. Rimuru's gravity field flickered. The stormtroopers were released. They did not thank Rimuru. They immediately began firing at the Tyranids and at Rimuru. It was a three-way chaotic brawl. Rimuru tried to cast a fireball. He launched a black flame. The lead zoanthrope opened its mouth and inhaled the fire. It grew larger. It had adapted to eat magic. This was a problem. Rimuru relied on magicals. If the enemy could eat his attacks, he was feeding them. He switched to physical attacks. He drew his sword. He slashed at a gaunt. The blade cut, but the chitin was harder now. It was dense, like diamond. The Hive Mind had poured all its resources into defense. Harlan was on the ground. He had been hit in the shoulder by a stray lair shot. He crawled toward his command box. He had to tell the ship to stop. He had to explain. But the righteous fury was not listening. Seeing the chaos on the ground, the ship captain made a decision. Protocol Omega. If the landing zone is lost to Xenos, sterilize the zone. The ship began to rotate. It opened its bombardment bay. It was loading macro cannons. They were going to flatten the city. Rimuru looked up. He saw the ship turning. He saw the cannons opening. He looked down. He saw Jace fighting a gaunt with a combat knife. Jace was crying. He was shouting the Emperor's name while the commissar shot at him from behind. It was madness. Rimuru felt a cold realization. He could not save everyone. If he stopped the ship, the bugs would eat the soldiers. If he fought the bugs, the ship would kill the soldiers. If he saved the soldiers, the commissar would execute them later. There was no happy end path here. This was not a manga. This was the grim darkness. Rimuru made a choice. He had to be the villain to save them. He activated his skill, Gluttony, but he did not aim it at the bugs. He aimed it at the humans. He expanded his slime body into a massive dome. He engulfed the 812th Regiment. He swallowed Harlan. He swallowed Jace. He swallowed the remaining 3,000 survivors. He did not digest them. He put them in his stomach, in the isolation space. It was the only safe place. To the commissar, it looked like the monster had just eaten the entire army. Holt screamed in vindication. "See? It eats the faithful." Holt fired his pistol until it clicked empty. Then a Tyranid lictor, an assassin beast, decloaked behind him. The lictor's mantis claws punched through Holt's chest. The commissar gasped. He looked at Rimuru. He died believing he was right. Rimuru was now alone in the plaza with the Tyranid Swarm. The humans were safe in his stomach, suspended in stasis. But Rimuru was furious. He was angry at the commissar. He was angry at the ship. He was angry at the bugs. He looked at the zoanthrope that had eaten his fire. He decided to test its limits. "Eat this," Rimuru whispered. He did not use magic. He used raw physics. He manipulated the water vapor in the air. He created a lens. He focused the sunlight again, but this time he didn't make lasers. He heated the air around the zoanthropes to 4,000 degrees instantly. It wasn't magicule energy. It was thermal shock. The brains of the aliens boiled. They popped. They could not adapt to simple thermodynamics fast enough. Then Rimuru looked to the sky. The righteous fury fired. A macro shell the size of a building fell toward the cathedral. It was a dumbfire munition. No guidance. Just gravity and high explosives. Rimuru could not catch this. It was too heavy. If it hit, the spire would collapse. The blast would crack the planet's crust. Rimuru flew up. He flew to meet the shell. He asked Raphael for a solution. Raphael suggested predator skill combined with spatial severance. Rimuru coated his sword in void energy. He slashed the air. He did not cut the shell. He cut the space the shell occupied. He opened a portal to his stomach, to the isolation storage, but a different partition than the humans. The massive shell fell into the portal. It vanished. Rimuru closed the portal. He was floating in the upper atmosphere now. He was eye level with the frigate. The bridge crew of the Righteous Fury saw a human-sized object floating off their bow. They were confused. Their sensor said the shell had vanished. Rimuru projected his voice to the ship. He did not ask for peace this time. "Leave," he said. "This is my territory now." The captain of the Righteous Fury was a pious man. He did not take orders from Xenos. He ordered the point defense turrets to fire. Hundreds of autocannons tracked Rimuru. They filled the sky with lead and fire. Rimuru didn't move. The bullets hit his absolute defense barrier and disintegrated. He was tired of this. He raised his hand. "Beelzebub," he intoned. He did not eat the ship. He ate the void shields. The shimmering bubble around the frigate distorted and was sucked into Rimuru's hand. The ship was now naked. Rimuru pointed his finger. He fired a single concentrated water blade. It was pressurized to millions of pounds per square inch. It sliced through the bridge of the frigate. It cut the command deck in half. The ship listed. It began to vent atmosphere. It was dead in the water. The crew panicked. They initiated an emergency warp jump. It was dangerous to jump this close to a planet, but they were terrified. The ship tore a hole in reality and vanished into the Imperium. Rimuru was left floating in silence. The Tyranid fleet at the edge of the system saw the Imperial ship flee. The Hive Mind calculated that the predator was too strong. It decided to abandon the prey. The bioships turned away. They would find easier biomass elsewhere. Ethelgard was lost. Rimuru flew down to the ruined plaza. It was empty. The bodies of the stormtroopers lay scattered. The lictor that killed Hol was dead, crushed by the gravity pressure. Rimuru stood on the steps of the cathedral. He was the ruler of the planet. He had defeated the invasion. He had defeated the rescue. He released the humans from his stomach. Harlan, Jace, and the others tumbled out onto the pavement. They were covered in blue slime, but alive. They coughed. They looked around. They saw the burning ruins. They saw the empty sky. They saw Rimuru standing there, looking sad. Harlan stood up. He looked at the body of Commissar Holt. He realized what had happened. He realized there was no going back. They were dead men walking. The Imperium would return, and next time they would bring a fleet. They would bring the Astartes. "What did you do?" Harlan asked quietly. "I saved you," Rimuru said. Again. "You damned us," Harlan said, but there was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. "You saved our lives and damned our souls. We are excommunicate traitores now. There is no home for us." Rimuru looked at the colonel. "Then I will build you a new one." Margos Varn crawled out from behind a pillar. He had survived the crossfire. He was clutching a piece of the Tyranid zoanthrope brain. He was ecstatic. He had new biological samples. He looked at Rimuru with religious awe. "The Omnissiah acts in mysterious ways," Varn rasped. "The flesh is weak, but your flesh is data." Varn had not stopped recording. He had transmitted the entire battle. The transmission had not gone to Mars this time. It had been intercepted. Deep in the warp, other eyes were watching. The burst of ordered energy Rimuru used was bright. It was like a lighthouse on the demon world of Sicarius. A word-bearer sorcerer looked into a scrying pool. He saw the blue demon that was not a demon. He saw the power to rewrite reality. He smiled. He began to chant. He would tell his Primarch. Lorga would want to know about this new god. And in the cold void between galaxies, the Hive Mind marked the location of Ethelgard. It did not forget. It realized that biology alone might not be enough. It needed to consume this blue anomaly. If the Tyranids could eat Rimuru, they would gain the power to consume the Chaos Gods themselves. The great devourer turned its attention. A new tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan changed course. Rimuru sat on the steps. He felt the weight of the leadership. In his old world, he had friends. He had Beni Maru. He had Shion. Here, he had a tired colonel, a crazy robot priest, and 3,000 terrified soldiers. Raphael, Rimuru thought. What is our resource status? Answer, the voice replied. Biomass sufficient. Magicals increasing. Strategic position. Critical. Diplomatic relations with dominant galactic power. Failed. Probability of extermination force arrival. 100%. Rimuru sighed. Great. Just great. He stood up. He addressed the troops. All right, everyone. Lunch break is over. We have a lot of work to do. We need to fix the walls. And I need someone to explain to me what a space marine is, because I have a feeling they are going to be a pain. Private Jace looked at the alien. He didn't know if he should salute or cry. He did both. He saluted with tears running down his face. They were the soldiers of the slime now. The 812th Cadian was gone. The 1st Tempest Regiment was born, and the galaxy would burn before they let their new master down, because he was the only thing in the universe that had ever offered them a glass of water without asking for their blood in return. Rimuru turned to the cathedral. He waved his hand. The broken stone flowed like liquid. The statues of the Imperial Saints shifted. They did not change into monsters. They just looked a little less angry. They looked a little more like family. It was a small change, but on Aethelgard, it was the start of a new era. The era of the Monster Federation of 40K had begun, and the clock was ticking toward midnight. 3 months passed. The silence of the void hung over the Aethelgard system. In the history of the Imperium, 3 months is nothing. It is a blink of an eye. Bureaucrats on Terra take 3 months to stamp a single form. But on the surface of Aethelgard, 3 months was an age. The city had changed. The scars of the Tyranid invasion were gone. The craters were filled. The twisted metal was recycled. The air was breathable. Rimuru Tempest sat in the central plaza. It was now a garden. He had used his skills to accelerate plant growth. Trees from his own world, or close approximations created from memory, grew in the grey soil. They were blue and silver trees. They ate the radiation and breathed out clean oxygen. The people of the hive did not know what to do with trees. They were afraid of them at first. They thought the leaves were Xenos weapons, but slowly the children came out. They played in the grass. It was the first grass they had ever seen. Colonel Vance Harlan walked through the garden. He looked different. His uniform was no longer Cadian drab. It was dyed a deep navy blue. The insignia of the Aquila was still there, but it was modified. It held a stylized slime drop in its claws. This was blasphemy. Harlan knew it. Every morning he looked in the mirror and expected a bolt of lightning to strike him down. But the lightning never came. Instead, breakfast came. The logistics of the hive were now perfect. Rimuru had organized the workforce. He did not use slave labor. He used shifts. He used incentives. He used the Tempest Wolves. Rimuru had summoned the Rangapak. They were not warp demons. They were spirits. They patrolled the streets. They were massive, size of tanks, with black fur and horns. The people loved them. The wolves hunted the rats. They carried heavy loads. They let children ride on their backs. The local ecclesiarchy priest, Father Duras, had tried to preach against them. He called them hounds of hell. Then a wolf brought him a fresh loaf of bread. Father Duras stopped preaching. He was hungry too. Harlan approached Rimuru. Rimuru was holding a meeting with the trade guilds. The guild masters were fat, sweaty men who usually hoarded resources. Now they were terrified and efficient. Rimuru smiled at Harlan. "Report," Rimuru said. Grain production is up 200%, Harlan said. The hydroponics bays you built are working. We have enough food to stockpile for winter. The water table is purified, but we have a problem. What problem? Rimuru asked. We are running out of promethium, Harlan said. The generators need fuel. Your magicules power the main city, but the tanks, the haulers, the outlying heaters, they need fuel. We usually import it. Rimuru nodded. He could create fuel, but it was inefficient to do it constantly. He wanted the city to be self-sufficient. Where do we get it? There is a mining outpost on the third moon, Harlan said. But we have no ships. You destroyed the Righteous Fury, and the Tyranids destroyed the orbital docks. Rimuru tapped with his chin. So we need a ship, or a bridge. Suddenly, the sky tore open. It was not a warp rift. It was a gravity translation. A fleet had arrived. Alarms wailed across the city. The citizens ran to the shelters. They knew the drill. The 812th Regiment, now called the Tempest Guard, mobilized. They moved differently now. They were faster. Their eyes were clear. They carried shields made of chitin steel alloy. Harlan looked at the sensors. Identify, he barked. Margos Varn appeared on the screen. His metal limbs were polished. He had upgraded himself with Tyranid biocomponents, which he hid under his robes. It is the Mechanicus, Varn buzzed. Explorator Fleet Iron Logic. It is Magos Dominus Kaelin. Rimuru stood up. Are they enemies? The Mechanicus is never a simple enemy, Varn said. They are logic. They are greed. I send them the data. They are here for the prize. The fleet did not bombard the city. A single massive cruiser, the Omnissiah's Truth, parked in low orbit. It was a floating city of iron and oil. A dropship descended. It was a heavy lander built to carry Titans. It landed outside the city walls. The ramp lowered. A procession of Skitarii marched out. They were cyborg soldiers. Their legs were metal. Their eyes were glowing lenses. They hummed with radiation. In the center was a floating platform. On it stood Magos Kaelin. He was huge. He was more machine than man. He had 4 mechanical arms and an axe that crackled with power. Rimuru walked out to meet them. He took Harlan and Varn. He also took Shan. He had summoned her the day before. He needed a bodyguard who understood his style. Shian looked at the cyborgs with disgust. She thought their cooking would be terrible. Kaelin looked at Rimuru. His optical sensors whirred. He scanned the slime. He scanned the city. He saw the repairs. He saw the impossible alloys used in the walls. He saw the water. Designation, unknown. Kaelin's voice was a deep synthetic bass. You are the entity described in the data packet Omega Thet Null. I am Rimuru Tempest, Rimuru said. Welcome to my city. Please don't shoot anything. Kaelin ignored the greeting. You possess a standard template construct capability. You generate matter from energy without entropy. This violates the third law of the cult Mechanicus. Yet, the data is verified. I just use skills, Rimuru said. It's not that hard. Blasphemy, Kaelin said. Or divinity. The line is thin. I demand access to your manufactorum. I demand the schematics of your molecular restructuring. No, Rimuru said. The Skitarii raised their radium carbines. The Tempest Guard raised their laser guns. The tension was thick. A single shot would start a massacre. I have a counteroffer, Rimuru said. He held up a hand. A bar of metal appeared. It was adamantium, but it was refined to 100% purity. It was impossible to make in a standard forge. I need promethium. You need rare metals. We trade. You leave us alone. You don't tell the Inquisition we are here. Kaelin paused. His logic engine spun. The Inquisition would destroy this place. They would burn the Xenos. But if they burn the Xenos, the capability to make pure adamantium would be lost. The Mechanicus hoards knowledge. They hate to share with the wider Imperium. If Kalen kept this secret, his forge world could become the most powerful in the sector. He could repair titans that had been broken for centuries. Greed won. It always does in the 41st millennium. Acceptable, Kalen said. But I will leave a garrison. 2. Monitor compliance, and Margos Varn will report to me. Deal, Rimuru said. The crisis was averted, or so it seemed. The Mechanicus set up a perimeter. They began to offload fuel. Rimuru provided tons of refined ore. It was a peaceful transaction. But the galaxy does not tolerate peace. While the eyes of the city were on the Mechanicus, a shadow moved in the Underhive. The word bearers had not sent a fleet. They knew a fleet would attract attention. They had sent a single sorcerer, Marduk, and his retinue of possessed. They had arrived weeks ago, hidden on a refugee transport from a nearby mining station. They had been waiting. Marduk stood in the deepest sewer level. The slime here was not Rimuru's blue slime. It was green and brown filth. Marduk drew a circle on the floor in blood. He had killed 10 refugees to make the paint. He chanted in the dark tongue. The air grew cold. The shadows lengthened. Marduk was not summoning a generic daemon. He was contacting the warp. He had sensed the power of Rimuru. He believed Rimuru was a demon prince of Tzinch who had lost his memory. He wanted to bind him. Or if that failed, he wanted to corrupt the city so the Emperor's light could never return. Gods of the Octid, Marduk whispered. Accept this offering. The walls of reality are thin here. The alien has weakened them with his foreign magic. This was true. Rimuru's dimension hopping and mass shifting weakened the local reality barrier. It made the veil thin. It made it easy for things to push through. The first sign was the nightmares. That night, the soldiers of the Tempest Guard could not sleep. They dreamed of teeth. They dreamed of fire. Private Jace woke up screaming. He looked at his hand. The veins were black. He felt a rage building in his chest. He looked at his roommate. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to drink his blood. Jace grabbed his head. He recited the mantra Rimuru had taught them. Work hard, play hard, eat well. It didn't help. The Imperial catechisms didn't help. The madness spread. In the mess hall, a fight broke out. A soldier bit the throat of another. It was not a brawl. It was savagery. The Tempest wolves sensed it. They howled. Runga materialized in Rimuru's room. Master, Runga said, the air tastes like rot. Rimuru woke up. He felt it too. It was not magicals. It was a sticky, oily feeling on his soul. Raphael analyzed it. Alert, Raphael said. Psionic corruption detected. Source, sublevel 42. Nature, chaos. Classification, warp breach. Rimuru jumped out of bed. Chaos, like the guys the Colonel talks about? Affirmative, Raphael said. This energy targets the ego. It targets the desire. It twists positive emotions into negative ones. Your protection barrier stops physical damage. It does not stop spiritual corruption. Rimuru flew out of the window. He saw smoke rising from the lower districts. It was pink smoke. It smelled like perfume and rotting meat. Harlan. Rimuru projected his thought. Seal the lower levels. Don't let anyone in or out. But it was too late. The cultists had risen. They were the people who had been left behind. The ones who didn't get the best jobs. The ones who resented the blue slime. Marduk had whispered to them. He promised them power. He promised them revenge. They surged up the elevators. They carried autoguns and jagged knives. And leading them were the possessed. The possessed were space marines who had let demons into their bodies. They were twisted hulks of armor and flesh. One had a crab claw, another had a mouth in his stomach. They charged the Mechanicus checkpoint. The Skitarii fired. Radium bullets hit the possessed. The flesh knit back together. The possessed tore the cyborgs apart. Magos Kalen watched from his ship. He calculated the odds. He decided not to intervene yet. He wanted to see if Rimuru could fight the archenemy. It was a test. Rimuru arrived at the sector gate. The Tempest Guard were holding the line, but they were wavering. The madness was affecting them. Their aim was poor. They were shaking. "Calm down," Rimuru shouted. He used Merciful Lord skill. It usually soothed pain, but against chaos it backfired. The chaos energy fed on the emotion. The soldiers cried harder. They dropped their weapons. Marduk stepped out of the shadows. He wore crimson power armor covered in parchment. He held a staff topped with a screaming skull. "Behold the false idol," Marduk shouted. His voice was amplified by the warp. "He feeds you bread, but he steals your souls. He is a Xenos trickster. Embrace the true gods." Rimuru looked at the sorcerer. "You're the one making everyone sick. That's rude." "I am Marduk, disciple of the word," the sorcerer said. "And you, little blob, are a battery. I will drain you dry." Marduk cast a spell. Doombolt. A bolt of black lightning struck Rimuru. Rimuru raised his hand to catch it. He expected it to be like the Tyranid acid or the laser. He expected to eat it. But when the lightning hit his hand, it didn't stop. It burned. It burned his soul. Rimuru screamed. He was thrown back into a wall. "Warning," Raphael said. "Soul corridor damage. Enemy attack utilizes conceptual destruction. Resistance to magic is ineffective. Resistance to physical is ineffective. Recommendation: use ultimate skill Uriel." Rimuru stood up. His arm was smoking. It healed slowly. This was new. He could be hurt. "Okay," Rimuru said. "That hurt. Now I'm mad." Rimuru drew his sword. He infused it with the attribute of holy. He didn't know if the Emperor was a god, but he knew that in most worlds, holy beats dark. "Shion," Rimuru yelled. "Cut them." Shion leaped from on the rooftop. She swung her massive sword, Hercules's edge. She hit a possessed marine. The blade cut through the power armor. It cut through the demon flesh. The outcome was rewritten. Her unique skill, Chef, allowed her to overwrite the nature of the object. She turned the possessed into ingredients. The demon screamed and vanished, leaving only a pile of diced meat. Marduk was impressed. "You have strong servants, but can you fight the Neverborn?" Marduk slammed his staff down. The reality tear widened. From the pink smoke, blood letters emerged. They were red demons with long swords. They didn't run. They marched. They chanted, "Blood for the blood god." The battle turned into a slaughter. The Tempest Guard were outmatched. A laser cannot stop a demon unless you believe it can. And the guardsmen were full of doubt. They died in droves. Rimuru saw Jace. Jace was fighting a bloodletter. The demon knocked the gun away. It raised its blade to take Jace's head. "No," Rimuru shouted. He teleported. He appeared between Jace and the blade. He took the hit. The hell blade cut into his shoulder. It was a cursed wound. It would not heal easily, but Rimuru didn't care. He grabbed the demon's face. "Beelzebub," he whispered. This time, he didn't try to eat the sword. He ate the demon's name. He ate its anchor to reality. The bloodletter flickered and dissolved. Rimuru turned to his troops. He saw their fear. He knew he had to change the narrative. Chaos wins when you're afraid. Chaos wins when you think you're weak. "Listen to me." Rimuru's voice boomed over the battlefield. He used domination haki to force them to focus. I don't care about your emperor. I don't care about your gods. I care that you ate my food. If you ate my food, you belong to me, and no one touches my property. It was a strange speech. It was possessive. It was arrogant. But it was exactly what the soldiers needed. They needed a lord. They needed to belong to something stronger than the demons. We are the Tempest, Harlan shouted. He fired his bolt pistol. He blew the head off a cultist. Push them back. The soldiers rallied. The fear turned to anger. The blessing of the Tempest reactivated. The tattoos on their arms, the slime crests, began to glow blue. It was a new form of faith. Not faith in a distant golden throne, but faith in the monster standing in front of them. The blue light burned the demons. The shadows recoiled. Marduk looked confused. Faith in a Xenos. Impossible. The anathema allows this? Rimuru charged Marduk. He moved at hypersonic speed. Marduk put up a kind shield. Rimuru smashed through it with a punch. He didn't use a sword. He used his fist. He punched Marduk in the helmet. The ceramite cracked. Marduk flew backward. I am not a Xenos, Rimuru said, walking forward. The black sludge of the warp hissed as it touched his boots. I am a demon lord. Get your terminology right. Marduk laughed. He was bleeding, but he laughed. You admit it. You are of the warp. I am from the Jura forest, Rimuru said. And you are trespassing. Rimuru raised his hand. Megiddo. But he changed the spell. He didn't use water drops. He mixed the water with holy spirits. He created Holy Ray. Thousands of beams of light rained down. They didn't burn the buildings. They didn't hurt the humans. They only burned the chaos filth. The bloodletters evaporated. The cultists fell. Their corruption burned out of their minds. Marduk realized he had miscalculated. This was not a Tzeentchian trick. This was something else. This was a soul that created its own rules. Marduk tried to open a portal to escape. Oh no you don't, Rimuru said. Space lock. The air hardened. Marduk was trapped. Rimuru stood over him. You broke my city, Rimuru said. You hurt my friends. The price is your life. Marduk sneered. Death is nothing to the word. I will return. Not where you are going, Rimuru said. Rimuru activated Gluttony. He swallowed the sorcerer whole. He threw him into the isolation stomach. He would not digest him yet. He wanted to interrogate him. He wanted to know about this chaos and why they were so annoying. The battle ended. The pink smoke cleared. The sun rose. The cost was high. 500 Tempest guards were dead. The lower district was a ruin. The minds of the survivors were scarred. They had seen hell. Magos Kailin watched from his ship. Remarkable, he stated. The entity possesses a psychically resonant field that mimics the armor of contempt. It can weaponize loyalty. Kailin opened a channel to Rimuru. Chancellor Tempest, Kailin said. Your combat efficiency is noted. However, the psychic resonance of this battle will draw more attention. The Grey Knights will smell this. Rimuru stood in the ashes. He looked tired. Who are the Grey Knights? They are the hammer, Kailin said. And you are the nail. I suggest we accelerate our trade agreement. I will provide you with void shield generators. You will need them. Rimuru looked at Harlan. Harlan was bandaging a wound. Colonel, Rimuru said, we need to get stronger. We just killed demons, sir, Harlan said. How much stronger can we get? Strong enough to fight the whole galaxy, Rimuru said. That evening, Rimuru made a decision. He could not just be a defender. He had to be a player. He went to the laboratory. He asked Raphael to pull up the blueprints for the Magigear soldiers from his previous world. He looked at the adamantium bars. He looked at the Tyranid chitin. He looked at the captured power armor of the sorcerer. "Raphael," Rimuru said, "combine them. Let's make our own Space Marines." It was the ultimate heresy, to tamper with the Emperor's design, to mix Xenos biology, warp technology, and STC logic. But Rimuru didn't care about the rules of 40K. He cared about survival. Deep in the manufactorum, the first Tempest Marine began to grow in a vat of blue liquid. It was not a human. It was a simulacrum, a magic-powered construct with a human consciousness uploaded into it. Far away, in the eye of the storm, the galaxy shifted. The balance of power on the eastern fringe had changed. A new faction had risen, one that did not serve the Corpse Emperor, the ruinous powers, or the Great Devourer. It served the slime. And aboard a strike cruiser painted black and white, a sensor officer noticed a new ping. "Marshal," the officer said, "we have a reading. Sector Ethelgard, Alpha Plus psychic event." High Marshal Helbrecht of the Black Templars turned. He was on a crusade. He was looking for a fight. "Set course," Helbrecht growled. "We will purge the witch." The storm was gathering. The peaceful days of building gardens were over. The crusade was coming. The 4th month of the occupation of Hive Ethelgard began with a quiet industrial hum. The screaming of the Tyranids was a memory. The screaming of the demons was a bad dream. Now the sound was the rhythmic pounding of the forges. Rimuru Tempest had changed the city. It was no longer a cage for billions of souls. It was a factory, but it was a factory that made hope. The citizens worked 8-hour shifts. They ate 3 meals a day. They had heated water. In the grim darkness of the far future, this was more unnatural than the aliens themselves. Colonel Vance Harlan stood on the new wall. It was not made of crumbling concrete. It was made of black steel, reinforced with Tyranid chitin. Rimuru had processed the corpses of the invasion fleet. He mixed the biological armor with the adamantium ore. The result was a metal that healed itself. If a tank shell hit the wall bled, then scabbed over, then hardened. It was alive. Harlan touched the cold surface. He felt a pulse. He pulled his hand away. He was still getting used to serving a master that could make stones breathe. Below in the courtyard, the new regiment was training. They were no longer the Tempest Guard. They were the Tempest Knights. Private Jace was there. He looked different. He was taller. His muscles were dense. He wore a suit of armor that looked like a sleek version of Space Marine power armor, but it was not powered by a fusion reactor. It was powered by a magical core. Rimuru called it Magic Gear. It amplified the user's strength by 10 times. It had a personal void shield. Jace held a sword that hummed with blue energy. He swung it. A wave of force knocked over a target dummy 50 yards away. Margos Varn watched from the shadows. His red optical lenses spun wildly. He was recording every microsecond. He had stopped praying to the machine god for forgiveness. Now he prayed for data. He believed Rimuru was the Omnissiah's avatar. Who else could merge biology and machine so perfectly? Varn had sent no more messages. He knew the Inquisition would not understand. He wanted to keep this miracle for himself. Rimuru sat in his office. It used to be the governor's spire. Now it was a Japanese-style tatami room. He was looking at a map of the subsector. Raphael spoke in his mind. The analysis was grim. The trade with the Mechanicus was stable but fragile. Margos Kylin was greedy, but he was logical. The rest of the Imperium was not logical. "Notice," Raphael said. "Warp signature detected. High velocity. It is not a drift. It is a charge." Rimuru looked up. "Who is it? More demons?" "Negative," Raphael replied. It is the Adeptus Astartes. Chapter, Black Templars. Fleet strength. Crusade configuration. Rimuru sighed. He put down his tea. Templars. Those are the religious ones, right? The ones who really hate witches? Affirmative, Raphael said. Their doctrine is absolute hatred. They do not negotiate. They do not trade. They purge. Rimuru stood up. He smoothed his kimono. He changed his form. He absorbed the cloth and extruded his black military uniform. He added a cape. He wanted to look official. He thought that if he looked like a leader, they might talk to him. This was the small choice. The choice to try and be civilized. The choice to treat the Black Templars like rational people. It was the mistake that would set the sector on fire. The Eternal Crusader broke real space at the edge of the system. It was not a ship. It was a moving mountain of Gothic cathedrals and gun batteries. It was the flagship of the High Marshal. It was accompanied by 6 strike cruisers and a dozen escorts. The void shields of the fleet rippled with power. They did not hail the planet. They did not ask for surrender. They launched drop pods while they were still moving at combat speed. High Marshal Helbrecht stood on the bridge of his ship. He held the sword of the High Marshals. His face was a mask of fury. He had felt the psychic scream of the demon battle months ago. He smelled the witch taint on the system. He saw the readings from the planet. The Hive City was alive. The walls were alive. It was an abomination. Suffer not the unclean to live, Helbrecht whispered. Launch everything, he roared. Burn it all. Leave not one stone standing upon another. The sky over Ithilgard turned black with contrails. Thousands of pods slammed into the atmosphere. They were aimed at the defensive batteries, the generator stations, and the palace. Rimuru watched them come. He calculated the impact zones. He could shoot them down. He could use Megiddo again. But he hesitated. Inside those pods were people. Brainwashed, violent people, but humans. He wanted to save humans. He told his troops to hold fire. Do not engage unless fired upon, Rimuru ordered. This was the second mistake. The drop pods landed. The ramps exploded outward. The Black Templars stormed out. They were giants in black plate. They wore tabards of cream cloth with black crosses. They held bolters the size of small cannons. They did not shout warnings. They opened fire. The Tempest Knights at the perimeter were cut down. Their magic gear shields flashed and failed. The bolter shells were mass reactive. They exploded inside the chests of Rimuru's soldiers. Jace saw his squad mates die. He saw a Templar sword brother charge him. The Astartes moved faster than thought. He swung a power sword. Jace raised his magic sword to block. The blades met. Sparks showered the ground. Jace was strong, but the Templar was skilled. The Templar kicked Jace in the chest. Jace flew backward, his armor cracking. The Templar raised his bolter to finish him. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the Templar. Ranga appeared. The giant wolf bit the Templar's arm. The ceramite crunched. The Templar did not scream. He punched the wolf in the nose. Ranga growled and summoned black lightning. The Templar was fried inside his armor. Rimuru teleported to the main plaza. The landing zone was chaos. The Templars were killing everyone. They were burning the trees. They were smashing the water barrels. They were destroying the heresy of a happy life. Rimuru felt a spike of anger. He amplified his voice. Stop, Rimuru shouted. I am the ruler here. I wish to parley. The fighting stopped for a second. The Templars parted. A massive figure walked forward. It was Helbrecht. He was covered in gold and black. He radiated an aura of pure faith. It was painful for Rimuru to look at. It was like looking at the sun. Helbrecht looked at the small blue boy. He saw the golden eyes. He saw the lack of a human soul. You speak, Helbrecht said. His voice sounded like grinding stones. You mock the holy form of man. You are the witch. I am Rimuru, he said. I saved these people. I fed them. Look at them. They are healthy. Helbrecht looked at the cowering citizens. He saw the slime tattoos. He saw the full bellies. He spat on the ground. You have fattened cattle for the slaughter, Helbrecht said. A soul that accepts comfort from a Xenos is already dead. You have not saved them. You have damned them. That's a matter of opinion, Rimuru said. I can help you too. You look angry. Maybe you need some good food. Or a bath. Helbrecht did not laugh. He raised his sword. The only help I need is the Emperor's light to guide my blade. Helbrecht charged. He was fast. Much faster than the Colonel. Much faster than the Chaos Sorcerer. He was a master duelist of 10 centuries. He closed the gap in a heartbeat. He swung the black sword. Rimuru drew his katana. He blocked. The impact cracked the pavement for 50 meters. The shockwave shattered the windows of the cathedral. Rimuru was pushed back. He was surprised. This human was strong, not physically stronger than a dragon, but his will was heavy. His will to kill added weight to the sword. It was a conceptual attack. The concept was death to the witch, and Rimuru was the witch. Raphael, Rimuru thought. Analyze opponent. Answer, Raphael said. Subject is protected by a high-tier mental barrier. Designation, faith. Magical interference is nullified. Subject believes he cannot lose. Therefore, reality bends to ensure he does not lose easily. So he's stubborn, Rimuru said. Great. Rimuru dodged a downward strike. He kicked Helbrecht in the side. The armor dented, but Helbrecht didn't flinch. He backhanded Rimuru. Rimuru flew through a stone pillar. He stood up, dusting off his coat. Okay, Rimuru said. That hurt. Around them, the battle raged. The Tempest Knights were learning. They started to use their speed. They used team tactics. 3 knights would pin a Templar, and a 4th would strike the joints. They were killing Astartes. This enraged Helbrecht even more. To see his brothers fall to peasants in magic armor was an insult to the chapter. Burn it, Helbrecht screamed into his vox. Orbital bombardment. Danger close. Target the plaza. Wait, Rimuru said. You're standing in the plaza. My faith is my shield, Helbrecht roared. The ships in orbit fired. Lance beams struck the city. They were precise. They hit the generator blocks. They hit the hospitals. They hit the housing districts. The city began to burn. Rimuru looked up. He saw the destruction. He saw the work of 4 months vanish in 4 seconds. He saw a building collapse on top of a school. Rimuru stopped moving. He lowered his sword. He felt something break inside him. It wasn't a bone. It was his patience. He had tried to be the nice guy. He had tried to play by the rules of a civilization. But this universe did not have civilization. It only had war. Colonel Harlan ran into the plaza. He was bleeding. He fired his bolt pistol at Helbrecht. The bolt bounced off Helbrecht's halo. Helbrecht turned. He saw the traitor officer. He saw the man who had led the heresy. Die, traitor, Helbrecht said. He fired his combi melter. A beam of superheated fusion energy hit Harlan. It hit him in the chest. There was no armor save. There was no dodge. Harlan's chest evaporated. He fell. He was dead before he hit the ground. Rimuru watched Harlan fall. He watched the man who had shared a stake with him turn into ash. Rimuru remembered Harlan's tired smile. He remembered Harlan teaching him how to salute. He remembered Harlan saying, "You saved us." The noise of the battle faded for Rimuru. The world turned grey. "Raphael," Rimuru said. His voice was cold, absolute zero. "Is the soul still there?" "Answer," Raphael said. The soul of individual Vance Harlan is dissipating. Probability of retrieval, 12%. Time window, 10 seconds. Secure it, Rimuru ordered. Secure all of them. Every citizen who died today. Grab their souls. Don't let them go to the warp. Acknowledged, Raphael said. Executing massive soul harvest. Warning, this requires vast energy. Converting magicule reserves. Rimuru looked at Helbrecht. The High Marshal was walking toward him to finish the job. You killed him, Rimuru said. He was a heretic, Helbrecht said. He died a coward's death. He was my friend, Rimuru said. Rimuru released his aura. He did not hold back. He did not care about the buildings anymore. He released the full pressure of a true dragon-class entity. The gravity in the plaza increased by 100 times. The rubble was crushed into dust. The Black Templars fell to their knees. Their servos whined and failed. Even Helbrecht was forced to bow. He strained against the weight. His armor groaned. What is this? Helbrecht gasped. This is the weight of your sin, Rimuru said. Rimuru floated up. He hovered above the battlefield. His hair turned a deep glowing violet. His eyes shone like stars. I offered you bread, Rimuru said. His voice echoed from the sky. You brought fire. I offered you peace. You brought death. You call me a monster? Fine. I will show you a monster. Rimuru activated a new skill. It was a variation of Secret Art of Spirit Resurrection, but he combined it with the material creation skill he used for the food. Awaken, Rimuru commanded. Secret Art. Dead-end rainbow. He did not use the kill skill. He inverted it. He poured magicules into the dead bodies of the Tempest Knights. He poured energy into the ash of Colonel Harlan. On the ground, the corpses began to move. The ash swirled. It reformed. Bones knitted together. Flesh rewove itself. But it was not human flesh anymore. It was semi-spiritual matter. It was tougher, stronger. Colonel Harlan gasped. He sat up. The hole in his chest was gone. In its place was a glowing blue crystal. He looked at his hands. They were pale like marble. He stood up. He did not feel pain. He felt power. He looked at Rimuru. He understood. He had died, and his lord had refused to let him go. Around the city, thousands of dead citizens stood up. They were not zombies. They were intelligent. They were the reborn. They were immortal soldiers of the Tempest. Helbrecht watched this. His mind could not process it. Resurrection is impossible. Only the Emperor can protect the soul. To pull a soul back from the warp and put it in a body. That is the power of a Chaos God. But there was no corruption. Harlan did not look like a demon. He looked like a saint. Abomination, Helbrecht screamed. He forced himself to stand. He fought the gravity. You mock life itself. I value life, Rimuru said, landing in front of Helbrecht. That is why I keep it. You throw it away. Rimuru looked at the Black Templars. There were 2,000 of them in the city. Raphael, Rimuru said, I don't want to kill them. If I kill them, they just become martyrs. I need to break them. Proposal, Raphael said. Skill, gluttony. Subroutine, skill steal. Target, indoctrination. Rimuru smiled. It was a cruel smile. Do it. Rimuru extended his hand. Beelzebub. He did not eat their bodies. He targeted the specific neural pathways in their brains that held their psycho-indoctrination. The hypnotherapy that made them feel no fear. The conditioning that made them hate Xenos. He ate their hate. A wave of black mist washed over the Templars. It passed through their helmets. It did not hurt. It just felt cold. When the mist cleared, the Templars stood up. They looked around. They looked at their bolters. They looked at the dead civilians. For the first time in centuries, a Black Templar felt doubt. They felt confusion. Why were they killing these farmers? Why were they burning this city? The blind rage was gone. The fanatical shield was lowered. Helbrecht felt it too. He felt the fire in his gut go out. He felt cold. He looked at Rimuru. He didn't see a witch. He saw a small person looking at him with pity. Helbrecht tried to summon his hate. He tried to recite the litanies, but the words felt hollow. They were just words. The conviction was gone. "What did you do to me?" Helbrecht whispered. He sounded old. He sounded broken. "I took away your blindfold," Rimuru said. "Now look at what you did." Helbrecht looked at Harlan. Harlan was standing there, alive again, holding his wife, who had also been resurrected. They were crying. It was a scene of love, and Helbrecht had tried to burn it. The High Marshal dropped his sword. It clattered on the stone. He fell to his knees. He put his head in his hands. The mightiest warrior of the Imperium was defeated not by a blade, but by clarity. The horror of his own actions crashed down on him without the buffer of his fanaticism. I am lost," Helbrecht wept. The battle was over. The shooting stopped. The Templars lowered their weapons. They were confused children in the bodies of giants. Rimuru turned to Harlan. "Colonel, secure the prisoners. Take their weapons, but give them food. They are probably hungry." Harlan saluted. "Yes, Lord Rimuru." Rimuru looked at the sky. The Eternal Crusader was still there, but its commander was on his knees. The fleet would not fire without orders. Margos Varn emerged from his hiding place. He was trembling with excitement. Resurrection, true resurrection, and mimetic rewriting. You have solved the equation of mortality. "Be quiet, Varn," Rimuru said. "I'm tired." Rimuru walked to the edge of the plaza. He looked at the burning city. He waved his hand. The fires died down. The water from the air put them out. He had won, but he had changed. He realized now that he could not hide. He could not just be a mayor of a single city. If he stayed small, the Imperium would keep coming. They would send more ships. They would send the Inquisition. They would send the Grey Knights. He had to become a demon lord in name and deed. He had to expand. "Raphael," Rimuru thought. "What is the nearest forge world?" "Answer," Raphael said. "Griffin 4. However, it is currently under threat from Hive Fleet Leviathan." "Good," Rimuru said. "We are going there." "Why?" Raphael asked. "Because I need an army," Rimuru said. "I have infantry. I need tanks. I need ships. And if I save a forge world, they will have to give me their toys." Rimuru turned back to Helbrecht. The High Marshal was being led away by 2 Tempest Knights. He didn't resist. "Hey, Helbrecht," Rimuru called out. The Marshal stopped. He looked back. His eyes were empty. "You're working for me now," Rimuru said. "You broke my city. You're going to help me fix it. And then, you're going to help me save this galaxy from itself." Helbrecht didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He just nodded slowly. He had no purpose left. His Emperor was silent. The slime was loud. The massive inflection point had occurred. Rimuru had not just defeated an Imperial crusade. He had subverted it. He had resurrected the dead. He had broken the psychological conditioning of the Astartes. This was no longer a local rebellion. This was the beginning of a new galactic power. The Rimuru Heresy had begun. But unlike the Horus Heresy, this one was not fueled by chaos. It was fueled by logic, efficient logistics, and a very dangerous amount of kindness. Deep in the warp, the Chaos Gods stopped their great game. Khorne looked at the battlefield, where the hate had been stolen. Nurgle looked at the dead who refused to rot. Tzeentch looked at the destiny threads that were snapping like twigs. Slaanesh looked at the perfection of the resurrected souls. They were afraid. For the first time in eternity, the Chaos Gods were afraid. Because something had arrived that did not play by their rules. Something that could eat them. Rimuru walked back to his office. He had a lot of paperwork to do. He had to design a new flag. He had to write a constitution. And he had to figure out how to feed 2,000 depressed space marines. Being a king is hard, Rimuru muttered. Correction, Raphael said. You are not a king. You are a god emperor. Don't call me that, Rimuru said. That name is taken. Not for long, Raphael replied. The timeline had shattered. The Imperium of Man was about to face the Federation of Tempest, and the war for the soul of humanity had just entered. The void around the forge world of Griffon IV was no longer empty space. It was a slurry of frozen blood, shattered metal and chitin. Hive Fleet Leviathan had arrived. The scale of the invasion was beyond the comprehension of the human mind. Billions of bioships formed a cage around the planet. They blocked the sun. The surface of the world was dark, lit only by the fires of burning manufactorums and the plasma discharges of dying titans. The Tyranids had already made planetfall. They covered the metallic plains like a living carpet. They were eating the planet down to the core. The defenders of Griffon IV, the Legio Griffonicus, were dying. Their warhounds were pulled down by swarms of gaunts. Their reavers were dissolved by acid spray. The Skitarii legions were running out of ammunition. Fabricator General Hesh stood in his command spire. He watched the logic engines turn red. He calculated the time until total extinction. It was 3 hours. He began the protocols to detonate the plasma reactors. If the Tyranids wanted the world, they would have to eat a star. Then the sensors picked up a new signal. It was not Imperial. It was not Xenos. It was a tear in the fabric of space that defied the laws of the warp. A fleet emerged from the tear. It was led by the Eternal Crusader. The massive Gloriana-class battleship was painted black, but its prow now bore a new symbol, a blue crest. Behind it came the captured Mechanicus cruisers from Ethelgard and strange organic ships, grown from Rimuru's own biomass. Rimuru Tempest stood on the bridge of the Eternal Crusader. He wore the full regalia of a true demon lord. His black cape flowed as if in a wind, though the air was still. High Marshal Helbrecht stood at his right hand. Helbrecht did not wear his helmet. His face was gaunt. His eyes were haunted but clear. He held the sword of the High Marshals, but the blade no longer glowed with golden light. It hummed with a dark violet energy. This is it, Rimuru said. The main course. The Leviathan, Helbrecht said. His voice was flat. It is endless. We cannot kill them all. We do not have the ammunition. We don't need ammunition, Rimuru said. We need to cut the head off the snake. Rimuru opened a channel to the surface. He bypassed the jamming. His voice rang out in every voxcaster on the planet. Attention citizens of Griffon IV. This is Chancellor Rimuru Tempest. I am here to enforce a hostile takeover. Do not resist my rescue. It will be faster if you just let me work. General Hesh heard the voice. He saw the new fleet. He saw the Eternal Crusader. He knew that ship. It belonged to the Black Templars. But why was it broadcasting a Xenos message? Hesh did not care. He paused the detonation timer. He would wait. Rimuru turned to Helbrecht. Deploy the Tempest Templars. Drop directly on the Titan assembly yards. Save the machines. At your command, Helbrecht said. The drop pods launched, but these were not standard drops. As the pods fell, Rimuru cast a spell. Mass teleportation. He didn't just drop the soldiers. He dropped the concept of reinforcement. The pods accelerated to impossible speeds. They slammed into the swarm surrounding the Titans. The Tempest Templars emerged. They were terrifying. They did not shout battle cries. They did not praise the Emperor. They moved with the silence of the grave. Their bolters fired blue plasma rounds created by Rimuru's magic. The rounds did not just explode, they erased matter. The Tyranids, adapted to physical trauma, did not know how to adapt to erasure. Helbrecht led the charge on the ground. He moved like a ghost. He didn't fight with anger, he fought with sadness. He saw the Tyranids as tragic beasts. He cut them down not to punish them, but to end their hunger. He carved a path to the nearest warlord Titan, the god's wrath, which was covered in genestealers. Helbrecht unleashed a wave of haki. The genestealers fainted. The Titan shook them off. Rimuru did not drop. He flew. He exited the airlock of the spaceship and flew down through the atmosphere. He did not burn. The friction of re-entry felt like a warm breeze. He looked at the ocean of Tyranids. He felt their hunger. It was a bottomless pit. Raphael, Rimuru thought. Can we talk to them? Negative, Raphael replied. The Hive Mind has designated you as priority threat alpha. It has blocked all diplomatic channels. It seeks only to consume your essence. It desires your ability to evolve. Fine, Rimuru said. If they want to eat, I'll give them a stomachache. Rimuru hovered over the main battlefield. He spread his arms. Gluttony. He unleashed his aura. A massive dome of black mist expanded. It covered 10 square miles. Inside the dome, the Tyranids stopped moving. They began to dissolve. Their biomass was ripped from their bodies and pulled toward Rimuru. He was eating the army. But the Hive Mind learned. It had watched Ethelgard. It knew about Gluttony. The Tyranids on the ground changed. The large beasts, the carnifexes and trigons began to glow. They overloaded their own bioreactors. They did not attack Rimuru. They exploded. Millions of them exploded at once. They turned their biomass into a wave of acidic plasma and psychic fire. They denied Rimuru the food. They weaponized their own death. The blast hit Rimuru. The shockwave knocked him out of the sky. He crashed into a ruined manufactorum. He stood up, dusting off his coat. His arm was burned. It healed instantly, but the energy cost was high. Smart, Rimuru muttered. They would rather die than feed me. Suddenly, the ground shook. A spire of the Hive City collapsed. From the dust, a creature emerged. It was not a normal Tyranid. It was the Swarm Lord, but it was different. It had 4 arms, each holding a bone sword. Its carapace was black and blue. It pulsed with the same energy as Rimuru. Analysis, Raphael requested. It copied me, Rimuru realized. The Swarm Lord had eaten the magical residue from Ethelgard. It had evolved. It had magic resistance. Asks. It had thought acceleration. It was a biological mirror of a demon lord. The Swarm Lord moved. It teleported. It appeared behind Rimuru. It swung a bone sword. Rimuru blocked with his katana. The impact shattered the building they were standing on. Rimuru was thrown back. He felt a cut on his cheek. The sword had cut through his absolute defense. Warning, Raphael said. Enemy weapon possesses soul-severing attribute. Damage is permanent unless purified. Rimuru wiped the blood. Okay, this is actually dangerous. While Rimuru fought the duel of the Millennium, the situation in orbit changed. The warp tore open again. This was not a rescue. A grey ship, sleek and deadly, arrived. It was the Litany of Fury. It belonged to the Grey Knights. Inquisitor Lord Torquemada Coteas stood on the bridge. Beside him was Grand Master Voldus of the Grey Knights. They looked at the surface. They saw the Tyranids. They saw the Black Templars using sorcery. They saw the blue demon fighting the Swarm Lord. Exterminatus, Cortez said. We cannot let the Tyranids consume that entity. If they eat the demon, they will become gods. Agreed, Volder said. The planet is lost. The Templars are lost. We must purge the taint. The Grey Knight ship began to charge its cyclonic torpedoes. These weapons would crack the planet's crust. They would kill everyone. Rimuru, Helbrecht, the Tyranids, the Mechanicus. Rimuru felt the danger. He looked up. He saw the energy building in the grey ship. Are you kidding me? Rimuru shouted. I'm doing all the work here. He had to make a choice. Fight the Swarm Lord or stop the Exterminators. If he stopped the ship, the Swarm Lord would kill him. If he fought the Swarm Lord, the ship would kill everyone. Raphael, Rimuru said, I need a miracle. I need you to evolve. Notice, the voice in his head said. Condition satisfied. Evolution of unique skill. Raphael to Mana Seal is authorized. Beginning integration. Time seemed to stop. The voice in Rimuru's head changed. It became warmer, more human. Hello, Master, Seal said. I have optimized your energy pathways. I have analyzed the Swarm Lord. I have analyzed the cyclonic torpedoes. I have a solution. Let's hear it, Rimuru said. Eat the Swarm Lord, Seal said. Use its power to amplify your spatial domination. Then, seize the torpedoes. The Swarm Lord is immune to gluttony, Rimuru argued. Not anymore, Seal said. I have rewritten the law of your gluttony. It can now consume concepts. You will not eat its body. You will eat its adaptation. Rimuru smiled. He looked at the Swarm Lord. The beast roared. It knew something had changed. It felt fear. Rimuru charged. He didn't use a sword. He used his hand. He plunged his hand into the Swarm Lord's chest. The anti-magic skin tried to stop him, but Seal adjusted the frequency of Rimuru's energy every nanosecond. Rimuru's hand phased through the defense. Predator, Rimuru whispered. He ripped the essence out of the Swarm Lord. He didn't take the biomass. He took the talent. He took the Hive Mind's ability to learn. The Swarm Lord froze. It looked at its hands. It forgot how to fight. It forgot how to heal. It was just a big bug. Rimuru slashed his katana. The Swarm Lord's head fell off. The link to the Hive Mind shattered. Across the planet, the Tyranids screamed. They lost their coordination. They became feral animals. Rimuru looked at the sky. The Grey Knight ship fired. 4 cyclonic torpedoes dropped toward the planet. They burned through the atmosphere. They were seconds away from impact. Rimuru teleported. He appeared in the upper stratosphere. He was directly in the path of the torpedoes. He held out both hands. Beelzebub, Void God version. A black hole the size of a coin appeared in his palms. It didn't suck in matter. It sucked in gravity. The torpedoes hit the event horizon. They were compressed. The megatons of explosive force were crushed into a single point of singularity. Rimuru swallowed the black hole. He felt a massive surge of energy in his stomach. It tasted like spicy curry. He floated there, high above the world. The Grey Knight ship was in front of him. He could see the bridge. He could see the Inquisitor's shocked face. Rimuru tapped into the Grey Knight's Vox channel. Inquisitor, Rimuru said. That was rude. I'm trying to save your planet. You are a demon, Cortez shouted. You are a warp spawn. You have corrupted the Astartes. I am a slime, Rimuru corrected. And I have just eaten the Tyranid invasion. Now, we are going to have a meeting. Come down to the surface, or I will come up there and eat your ship too. Cortez looked at Voldus. The Grand Master of the Grey Knights gripped his nemesis force halberd. He sensed Rimuru. He expected to feel the rot of Nurgle or the rage of Khorne, but he felt nothing. He felt a void. It was not the cold void of the Necrons. It was a calm void, like a deep ocean. He stopped the Exterminatus, Volder said. He killed the Swarm Lord. If we fight him now, we lose the ship, and the Tyranids on the ground are still a threat. We need to assess. We do not negotiate with demons, Codius hissed. He is not a demon, Volder said slowly. A demon cannot eat a cyclonic torpedo. That was something else. We go down. The meeting took place in the ruins of the Fabricator General's palace. The table was a slab of wreckage. On one side sat Rimuru, Helbrecht, and Hesh. On the other sat Inquisitor Coteas and Grandmaster Voldus. The atmosphere was heavy. The Grey Knights stood with their weapons active. The Tempest Templars stood opposite them, their hands on their hilts. The air crackled with psychic tension. State your intent, Coteas demanded. He held the hourglass. You have occupied an imperial world. You have enslaved a crusade fleet. You have practiced necromancy. I saved the world, Rimuru said. I recruited the fleet, and I resurrected the dead because they didn't deserve to die. My intent is simple. I want a territory. The Imperium does not share, Coteas said. The Imperium is dying, Rimuru said. He put a map on the table. It showed the galaxy. It showed the Cicatrix Maledictum, the great rift tearing the galaxy in half. You are losing. Leviathan is eating the east. Chaos is eating the west. The Necrons are waking up. You don't have enough men. You don't have enough ships. Rimuru drew a circle around the Ethelgard and Gryphony sector. I will take this, Rimuru said. The Tempest Federation. I will protect these worlds. I will feed them. I will build ships. And I will hunt the Tyranids. In exchange, you stay out. No taxes, no Inquisition, no Exterminatus. And if we refuse, Voldus asked. Rimuru leaned forward. His golden eyes glowed. Then I will release the souls I have collected. I have the soul of a High Marshal. I have the souls of 1,000,000 guardsmen. I have the knowledge of the Tyranid Hive Mind. If you refuse, I will become your enemy. And unlike Abaddon, I don't fail. Helbrecht spoke up. He speaks the truth. The Tyranids on this world are broken. My men are free of the rage. We fight better. We live better. The Emperor protects, but Rimuru provides. Coteas stared at Helbrecht. To hear a High Marshal speak such heresy was unthinkable. Yet the evidence was there. The planet was still turning. The Tyranids were being hunted down by the Tempest Templars. The Manufactorums were already restarting. You are a threat to the Imperial truth, Coteas said. But you are a useful threat. For now. A truce, Rimuru said. Not an alliance. A ceasefire. I keep what I kill. Voldus looked at the Inquisitor. The Hive fleet is still moving toward Terra. We cannot afford a war on a second front against a god-killer. We accept the ceasefire, pending review by the High Lords. The High Lords will agree, Rimuru said, because I'm going to send them a gift. Rimuru snapped his fingers. A crate materialized. Inside were ingots of pure restored adamantium and schematics for a STC Geller field device that was 100% efficient. Give that to Mars, Rimuru said. Tell them there is more where that came from, if they play nice. The Inquisitor took the crate. He knew this was bribery. He knew this was corruption. But the Imperium needed metal. It needed tech. The Grey Knights left. They did not bow. They walked away backwards, keeping their eyes on the slime. They knew this was not over. They knew that one day they would have to kill this creature. But today was not that day. Rimuru watched them leave. He slumped in his chair. He was exhausted. That went well, Rimuru said. You threatened the Inquisition, Helbrecht said. You are insane. It worked, Rimuru said. General Hesh rolled forward on his mechadendrites. Chancellor, the logic engines are stable. We are ready to begin production. What are your orders? First, Rimuru said, we need to clean up the bug bodies. That's a lot of free meat. Second, we need to build a school and a bathhouse. A really big bathhouse. Hesh was confused. Bathhouse? Does this serve a strategic purpose? Yes, Rimuru said. Morale. If you want people to work hard, you have to let them relax. The days that followed were the beginning of the Tempest Federation. The Griffona sector became a fortress. Refugees from other systems flocked there. They heard whispers of a blue god who fed the hungry and raised the dead. The ecclesiarchy tried to stop them, but they couldn't stop the rumors. Rimuru stood on the balcony of his new palace. He looked at the stars. He felt the gaze of the galaxy upon him. He felt the anger of Khorne, the curiosity of Tzeentch, the hunger of the Tyranids, and the cold calculation of the Silent King. Seal, Rimuru thought. What are our odds of survival? Answer, Seal replied. The probability of peaceful existence is 0%. The probability of total war is 100%. I like those odds, Rimuru said. It keeps things interesting. He looked down at the courtyard. Helbrecht was teaching a group of orphans how to hold a wooden sword. The High Marshal was smiling. It was a small, stiff smile, but it was there. Harlan was organizing the logistics of the grain shipment. Magos Van was arguing with General Hesh about the efficiency of slime-based lubricants. It was a mess. It was chaos. But it was civilization. Rimuru took a deep breath of the filtered air. He pulled a mask out of his pocket. It was the mask Shizu had given him. He put it on. All right, Rimuru said to the empty air. Let's see who tries to take this away from me. Far away, on the golden throne, the corpse of the Emperor sat in silence. But in the warp, where his soul fought an eternal battle, a ripple passed through the psychic sea. It was not a ripple of fear. It was a ripple of amusement. The anathema had found a partner, or a rival. Either way, the game had changed. The chronicle of the slime had been written in the stars of the 41st millennium. The grim darkness had a new color. It was blue. The Tyranids retreated from the sector. They marked the space as indigestible. The Necrons of the Sautaic dynasty paused their expansion, calculating the threat of the Soul Thief. The Orcs heard about a new war boss who gave the best fights and had the best loot, and wah! Rimuru began to form in the south. Rimuru Tempest had taken over a corner of Warhammer 40K. He hadn't fixed everything. The universe was still a nightmare. But in his corner, the nightmare had a hot spring and a full dinner. And for the people of the Tempest Federation, that was enough. Rimuru signed the Treaty of Griffon. He signed it with a doodle of a smiling slime. The document would be locked in the deepest vault of the Inquisition, classified Vermilion. It was the most dangerous piece of paper in the galaxy. It was proof that hope was possible. And in the 41st millennium, hope is the deadliest heresy of all. 10 years have passed since the signing of the Treaty of Griffon. In the vast history of the Imperium, a decade is less than a heartbeat. But in the Eastern Fringe, this decade has felt like a millennium. The sector known now as the Tempest Federation has become a paradox. To the Navigator Guilds, it is a beacon of calm in the warp. The storms that ravage the surrounding systems break against the borders of Rimuru's domain, like waves against a cliff. The light of the Astronomicon is dim here, overpowered by the golden and violet aura of the entity that sits on the throne of Ethelgard. Trade ships from the Federation travel the void lanes. They are strange vessels. They blend the Gothic arches of Imperial design with the organic curves of Tyranid biomatter and the shimmering barriers of sorcery. They do not carry weapons of war. They carry grain. They carry water. They carry ingots of pure adamantium that the forge worlds of Mars crave with a desperate hunger. The High Lords of Terror officially denounce the Federation. They call it a Xenos trap. They call it a spiritual poison. Yet, the cargo ships are allowed to dock. The hunger of the Imperium outweighs its pride. Every shipment of Tempest grain feeds a starving hive world, and with every bite, the seed of doubt is planted. The citizens whisper. They whisper of a land where the factories do not kill the workers. They whisper of a blue angel who does not demand blood, but only asks for cooperation. Inside the Federation, life has mutated into something unrecognizable. The ecclesiarchy priests still preach, but their sermons have changed. They no longer preach the virtue of suffering. They preach the virtue of service. They say the Emperor protects, but Rimuru provides. It is a heresy that the Inquisition burns men for in other sectors. Here, the Inquisitors watch in silence, their hands tied by the threat of the slime's wrath. The Space Marines of the Tempest Templars patrol the walls. They are no longer the black-clad executioners of High Marshal Helbrecht's crusade. They wear armor of silver and blue. They patrol with wolves the size of tanks. They do not kill the innocent to get to the guilty. They have learned the concept of nuance. Helbrecht himself has not been seen in public for years. Rumors say he meditates in the crystal caves beneath the capital, guarding the soul vaults where the Chancellor keeps the essence of the fallen. He is a warrior waiting for a war that he knows will eventually come. The galaxy has not ignored this change. The Necron overlord Trazin the Infinite has been spotted near the system borders. He does not attack, he observes. He desires to add the Chancellor to his collection. He sees Rimuru not as a leader, but as a unique specimen, a creature that defies the laws of the Catan. The Orcs too have noticed. In the Octarius sector, the war bosses speak of the Blue Git. They do not want to loot his city. They want to fight him. They sense a fight that will last forever. Awa is gathering larger than any before, drawn to the powerful energy signature of the Federation. And in the eye of terror, the Chaos Gods are restless. The intricate game of the great powers has been disrupted. The pieces on the board are moving on their own. Khorne rages because the blood does not flow in Ethelgard. Nurgle weeps because his plagues are cured by a potion brewed in a slime's stomach. Tzeentch schemes, but his threads of fate are cut by a sword that eats destiny. Rimuru Tempest sits in his office. The paperwork is endless. The requests for alliances from minor Xenos races pile up on his desk. The threats from Imperial governors pile up on the floor. He looks out the window at the garden he built on a world of iron. He sees children playing with a small, harmless slime. He knows this piece is fragile. He knows it is a bubble of soap floating in a hurricane. He knows that eventually the bubble will pop. The Tyranids will return with a fleet that cannot be eaten. The Imperium will decide that starvation is better than heresy. The Necrons will wake up. But for now, the sun is shining. The air is clean. And for the first time in 40,000 years, a human child on a forge world is laughing. That sound is more powerful than a bolter. It is more dangerous than a warp rift. It is the sound of a future that was not supposed to exist. The grim darkness has a crack in it, and through that crack, a blue light is shining. The story of the slime in the 41st millennium is not over. It is merely waiting for the next roll of the dice. And in the darkness, the laughter of the primordial gods has turned into a nervous silence.